All right. So, just to remind you what we were doing last week, we were seeing how to construct various features, and a couple of things that we discussed last time was constructing Coulomb matrix for molecules, and then constructing sign matrix for crystalline solids. So today we'll look at one more feature, how to construct that. But before going into that, and I had shown you these examples last time, what we were working with was that we had downloaded a database file from the CMR uh, website, CMR databases, and we were extracting information from that, and then constructing the features and creating the data set, which eventually we will use for training our models. But materials project is a bit different, and it is also made a little complicated by the fact that describe has to be run with a different version of Python as compared to the latest version of Python that is available, with which we can run other Python scripts, or eventually we'll learn scikit-learn to do the model training. So I'll spend a few minutes showing you how one can create. I mean, I'm not claiming that this is the only way of doing it, but this is one neat way of doing it. If you can do it in any other way, or merge these two computations in the same Python script, that's perfectly fine. So what the way I will show you is that, so first is accessing materials from the materials project database through NP API, which I had discussed in one of the earlier lectures. I'll show you once again. And once you can access the databases or the data there in the database, you can save the structures, material structures, uh, in JSON format. I had shown you this. So that is this left, on the left you see this save structures in JSON file. And we also access various physical properties. For example, it could be band gap, it could be formation energy, it could be distance from the hull. So once we access those properties, we can save those, and we can save those in whatever format we want. We can save those in the CSV format, which is a compact way of saving data, and which can be easily read in during model training. And once you have so I actually just a second. Yeah, so this arrow should be here. So once you save the structures as JSON files, you can then use those, read information from those files, and calculate feature vectors from there using our describe library. So this is something I'll show you today. And once you have created the feature vectors, and you take these CSV file which stores the properties, then you can merge the two and get the data set, complete data set, which contains both the features and material properties. So we'll see how to do that. So remember that I had shown you this script earlier. I'll show you the main parts. You should be able to recall this, and I think I had even shared this with you. Um, so we had seen this. What are the list of available fields when you use the summary endpoint? And we had printed this out. Similarly, we had seen output of this when we use the absorption endpoint. What are the available fields. Today, in what we'll do, the absorption endpoint will not be useful for us. So I can even comment these lines. I had also shown you this chemical environment endpoints. So we will only access information through this summary endpoint, material summary endpoint. Okay. So with that, so what do? We access docs. These are MP data doc objects. So I use the materials summary search option to select the materials I'm interested in. So I had shown you these things earlier. You can choose whatever you want. So here I'm choosing materials that have band gaps between zero point 0.1 and 1 eV, number of electrons up to 4 in the unit cell, number of elements up to 4 in the unit cell, and number of sites, that is the number of atoms, total number of atoms in the unit cell, up to 10. All right. So, and then once these materials are identified, what are the properties that I'm trying to access? That is given by these things in the field. The fields list will tell you what are the things that I'm accessing. So material ID is one, just to identify different materials. Formula pretty, I told you, is just the chemical formula. N elements, number of different elements. N sites, number of atoms in the unit cell. Structure, because that structure is what we will need to construct the feature vectors such as sign matrix or anything else that we might want to construct. Then the rest of these are the properties, and on one or more of these properties, one can train regression models. Band gap, energy from the that is energy above the hull, formation energy per atom, etc. Okay, so once you have this statement, all the materials that satisfy the conditions you have put will be identified, and these properties in the fields list will be read or accessed. Now, how do you handle once the information has been obtained? This is a simple statement. It just gives you how many materials you have, length of the docs object, and I had shown you this thing earlier. I'm just randomly identifying one element of that docs object and printing its formula, number of sites, and number of elements. This is just to check what we get. Now comes the real part. This is something I had not shown you earlier. I had only told you that this is a docs is something which is an MP data doc object, and you can check once again the materials project website to see the details. All the documentation is given there, but you can, so it contains a list of things and you can iterate over those. So that is this iteration. So for every element in this docs, we'll do the following steps. So this is a for loop. Before that, I put a header line. So rows is something in which I'll keep on adding information as we iterate over docs, iterate over doc, inside docs, and these are just the headers of the information I will extract. And note that this is just the properties I'm accessing. The ID, the formula, band gap, formation energy, energy hull, etc. So that will be the top line, the header line. Okay, now this statement is important. Atoms is AC atoms adapter. Now AC comes in here. So doc dot structure. So doc is an element in this docs, and doc dot structure. Structure is an attribute, and doc dot structure will give you the structure of one of the element, one of the materials. Okay, so and it loops over these materials. So when it's working with one material, dot structure will give it structure, and AC atoms adapter is is a function or whatever way it is defined in PyMatGen. It is something that is defined in PyMatGen. So I'll show you how we get this. So we go to line to the top of the file, and here you see I'm importing this. So PyMatGen input output AC, it has an interface with AAC. So PyMatGen has an interface with AAC, and when you import this AAC atoms adapter, then what you can do is you can convert a structure that you have obtained from materials project, and basically it converts it to an AAC atoms object, which we discussed in detail in the last lecture. So once you have the AAC atoms object, in the next line, you just write it. And what write is this? This write has also been imported from AAC. You see this line, from AAC input output, we import write, and when we do this atoms dot write, it will write the structure in the JSON format, AAC JSON format, and the root of the file name will be doc.material ID. So whatever the material ID, .json will be the name of the file in which the structure is stored or saved in AAC JSON format. After that, so that is a separate JSON file. So if for every material, we are creating a JSON file. And then this line, this is a different thing. We are appending whatever information we have obtained about the material to our list rows. So we are appending materials, ID, formula, band gap, formation energy, energy above hull, etc. And once we have appended this information, we create this file, temporary CSV. You can name it whatever you want. It doesn't have to be temporary. So we write in this file as a CSV, in the CSV format. So I'll show you. I'm not going to run this script here. I have already run it, and I'm going to show you what you obtain. So here is my temp.csv file. I'll just move away from the screen for a second, just to see that there are no questions or anything. Okay. So yeah, so you see these are the headers I wrote: MPID, formula, band gap, formation energy per atom, energy above hull. So these things, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And these are the IDs. So MP dash something would be the materials project ID of a particular material. Then you have the formula, the chemical formula of the material. Then this is the band gap. Then this is the formation energy per atom. And this is the energy above the hull. And you have how many, whatever. Here I have 1593 rows in this file. So 1592 materials. Okay. And I have also got these JSON files. See the same IDs, MP dash some number, the same IDs, .json are the file names in which the structure is stored. Oops. I had shown you these JSON files earlier, and it contains information about cell, the lattice vectors. This line stores the elements in terms of their atomic numbers. Z, periodic boundary condition tells you whether it's periodic in directions of the three lattice vectors. These are the positions, the Cartesian positions of the atoms. Here you have 9 atoms and each has 3 coordinates, so there will be 27 numbers here, and the rest are IDs. And I downloaded it from my user's ID, so all this information is given there. So each JSON file looks like this. Fine. There is an additional part in the, so what we have got so far is that we have got some properties which we stored in the temp.csv file, and we also got the structures. Now, if I want to create a data set for model training, I have to create features from these structures. That is something I'll show you in a minute. And and then I have to merge it with the properties that I have stored in the temp.csv file, right? So the remaining part, I'll just quickly tell you what I have done here. You turns out that in this specific case, it is not really essential, but nevertheless, I have done it. So what I have done here is that if you look at the temp.csv files once more, the materials are not ordered according to the ID. It's not necessary at all. But when we merge the features and the physical properties, we have to ensure that there is a proper match, because I cannot combine features of material A with the properties of material B. Then my data set would be wrong. So I just wanted to sort of order this file uh, in terms of increasing number, this ID number. As I tell you, it is not essential, but it's just something I did. And if you want, you can even skip this part, but I'll just explain what you do. And I'll share you, not the entire script. If you look at what I shared from previous day's lecture, I have not given you all the statements in the scripts that I showed. Some I left blank, only indicating what is to be done there. And it is sort of a homework exercise for you to figure out what will be the proper Python script there. So here what I used was this pandas data frame. See here, I had imported pandas as PD. So I use that. So once I save my information in temp.csv, I read it as a data frame. So this line reads it as a data frame. And I showed you this line. Let me keep this open. I want to order my rows in increasing order of this number, the materials ID. So what I have to do for that is to split this MP dash number into MP and number, and then I can order it according to number. Oh, no, this is not what I want. Yeah. So, so this is that split. So this is where this statement splits one row of the data frame which had ID MP ID. So this one is now split into two rows, MP and ID. So in each row, this column containing the the header MP ID will be split into two rows, MP and ID, and it will be split at the position where you have the dash. And expand equal to true means all the columns are kept, and the two new columns containing just MP and ID will also be added to your data frame. So you can just put a print statement here and see what it does. So once you have split it, then you can sort this. And how do you sort it? Sort it by ID. ID is this number. ID is this number. So this row, this column, entries in this column is split into two parts. One will be just empty and the other will be this number for each row. Okay, so once you have split it, then you can sort the rows by the values in the column ID. Okay, and in place means it's the same data frame. I'm not creating a new data frame. It's the same data frame in which the rows are sorted according to the values of this column ID. So once my sorting is done, I don't need these two separate columns, MP and ID, that I created. So I can drop these columns. So I drop these columns with the headers MP and ID. And this dropping of this column, you have seen examples before, I believe, when Dr. Mishra was discussing examples of machine learning. And we'll see that again when we go into model training. And after dropping those, so what we have done is we split the rows, then we ordered them according to the ID number, and once that ordering is done, we just drop the new columns, and we are back to our old data frame. And I just write this original data frame in this file named mpmaterialsdata.csv. You can name it whatever you want, but this is what I called it. So let us see how it looks like. So this was the temporary file, and here is the new file after ordering, and you see these numbers are ordered. I tell you it is not essential, but just to be sure I did it so that we don't match wrong this thing. So this is now ordered. So once this ordering is done, the next thing is I have to calculate the feature vectors, right? So suppose I want to calculate sign matrix, just as an example, sign matrix or the eigenvalues of the sign matrix. So we know how to use, I mean, I showed you examples and I shared the script, how to calculate sign matrix once the structure is given to you. But here what we have is, we have structures of several materials in JSON file stored as np dash some number time dot JSON. So we have to read those one by one as AAC atoms objects, call describe, calculate the sign matrix, and then store it. So this is what is done in this script. I'll show you this script. Yeah. So to loop over all the files in the directory, so path, this capital P, path is it's there in Python. So when you use this, so basically it just, this global, this thing mp star.json means, so path gives it the path, which directory, which folder it looks into. So dot means it's looking in the current directory, and global means it looks for all files with mp after that anything .json. So it will go over all these files. Okay, so that is the path list. So the path list will contain all the file names, all the mp dash number .json files in the present directory. So this is what this statement does. And then size equal to 10, because we had downloaded data with maximum number of 10 atoms in the unit cell. So therefore, the maximum size of the sign matrix I can have is 10 by 10. So I just put the size as 10 in this case. rows is something in which I'll keep appending my information as before. This is just the header line, and I should actually put rather than 20, I should have put size here, whatever that number is. In this case, it's 10. And then I loop over the items in path list, and each time file name is taken to be the string in the path list, the current string. Okay, so basically it will take the file names, convert them into strings, and that will be stored in this variable file name, and you have the current file name. So once you have a file name, this is again just a manipulation, nothing fundamental here. Name is just omitting the .json part. I leave the last 5 characters. So I drop the last 5 characters in the string file name. So I have the np dash, then the ID number, that's stored as name. Because I use that to, when I write things in the JSON file, CSV file, I use that as a sort of ID of a particular material. Now here is it. Here is the AC JSON, AC atoms object. So all you have to do is atoms equal to read file name. Remember, the file name is the JSON file. Okay, it's the full JSON file. And what is this read? This read has been obtained, imported from AC input output. So AC input output read, and when you say read a particular JSON file, it reads in the structure in AC JSON, AC atoms object. So atoms, this atoms is now an AC atoms object. And this part I had shown you earlier. This part is just to know what are the elements, what are the atomic numbers present. So I create this list samples. No, I haven't done that here. So what I'm doing here is that for a given material, these are this Z numbers is the atomic numbers of the elements that constitute the material, and then I look at the length of this. Okay, and if the length of Z numbers is greater than my size, that would mean that I have more than the maximum allowed number of atoms in my unit cell. It's unlikely to happen here, but suppose you had a whole, in JSON files which you had downloaded earlier, where the maximum number of atoms that you searched for in the AP database was not necessarily 10, could have been higher, but you are only interested in materials up to 10 atoms in the unit cell. So that is just a check. So if the length of this thing is greater than your size, then it will tell you that it's greater than size. Okay, so samples is, I'm not even sure that I need both these lines, but anyway, nevertheless, I don't know why I did it. But eventually, what this current does is it stores the information atoms, but it's not an AAC atoms object anymore. It's just a list. Okay, and this line tells you how to create. This is something we had seen earlier. So what is important up to this point is that current basically has the information about the structure we are working with. And this line just tells you, describe how to create the sign matrix. What is the maximum number of atoms you can have, which is set by size, then permutation, how the rows and columns are permuted, it's L2 permuted, and so on. This line creates the sign matrix. So sign matrix descriptor create for the current structure. So that is given by current. And I told you this is returned as, I think it's a 1D NumPy array. You have to reshape it into a 2 by 2, size by size array if you want to calculate its eigenvalues. If you are interested in only the independent elements of the sign matrix, then there are other ways you can extract this from the 1D array. But if you are interested in calculating eigenvalues, then this is what you do. So what is this eigenvalue? How do you get the eigenvalues? I'll go to the top of the file and I should. I have. Sorry, I have imported the entire NumPy, so I can call this. So this will give me the eigenvalues of the 2D matrix stored in SM2D. And in this example, I'm storing only the eigenvalues. So I append the eigenvalues to rows again, and then I open this CSV file and write it there. So I write the eigenvalues and the name, and remember this name was the materials project ID. So let me see how this file looks like. Yeah, so I only need it up to SMIG 10 in this example. Yeah, so this is how it would look like. So for each line, we'll identify a material by its material project ID, and then it will contain the 10 eigenvalues in increasing order of A2. No. So that is it. Now the task is to merge the two files. This file contains the features, and the other file I showed you earlier contains the physical properties. And as it turns out, this material, I mean, when I calculate the sign matrix, somehow this is getting ordered. These materials are getting ordered according to the MPID. So that I do by a simple script, which again uses pandas. So I read these two files, the mp sign matrix.csv, which contains the eigenvalues of the sign matrix, and the materials data are read in as a different pandas data frame from the corresponding CSV file. And then these are merged. So the merged data frame is, pandas has a nice feature, merge. You just merge two data frames. And how do you merge them? You merge them using this column ID, MPID. So it will just look at the two data frames, take the, match the entries in the MPID column and merge them, merge the corresponding rows. So that's how the merged data frame is created. The remaining exercise is, I mean, it's not very significant, so I'm not getting into this. I mean, it does nothing new actually, just reorders the columns. So finally, the merged data frame is written to another CSV file. Okay, so let me show you this file. let me run it once more. Yeah, so here is the data file, data set. So you see it has formula. So what so I just brought the formula to the second column. That's the part I did not show you. So that I have first column is MPID, second column is the formula. Then the next few columns are the 10 eigenvalues of the sign matrix, and the last few columns are 1, 2, 3. Three properties: band gap, formation energy, and energy above the hull. So now this is the CSV file that is ready to be used for model training. Okay. Conceptually, it's very simple. I'll go back to from these data files and scripts, I'll go back to my slides to conceptually explain. So what we did was we accessed materials, stored structures in JSON files, and use those to calculate feature vectors. I calculated sign matrix. You can calculate whatever you want. On the other hand, parallelly, when you access data, you save the physical properties in a different CSV file, and then you merge these two, the features and the physical properties, by matching the MP materials IDs. And then you have your CSV file data set. Okay, so that is about creating data sets from materials project database, and we'll see how to use this to train models. So that will come slowly. Next step, if you have any questions, you can either ask or type in. If not, I'll just stop for a minute or two and then I'll move on to the next topic. Yeah. I'll quickly show you how to create ACSF. You remember we had discussed it, so I'll of course not spend much time on going over ACSF, but I'll still would like to remind you what ACSF was. Is the atom-centered symmetry function. So we'll now learn how to create atom-centered symmetry functions. So just recall that atom-centered symmetry functions as a function, as the name suggests, you have to identify a central atom, and then depending on the distribution or the location of the other atoms around the central atom, you create various quantities. So basically, you create 2-body and 3-body functions centered around your central atom, and you set a cutoff through this function so that as you go away from the central atom, the contributions of various atoms go down with distance in a certain manner, and it goes to 0 at r equal to rc, and rc is a parameter that has to be set before you calculate ACSF. Okay, so with that, we defined a few 2-body functions. We called those G1, you would recall, G2, you would recall, and G3. And each one is labeled. So you have whatever central atom, it can have whatever identity. You may even choose to calculate ACSF only around certain atoms in the unit cell, not every atom. By default, it will calculate ACSF centered around every atom in the unit cell. And I'll show you an example of that. So, yeah, the 2-body function G1, you recall, was just a sum of these cutoff functions for atoms with atomic number Z1. So that would be my G1 Z1 centered on atom I. G2 is again a sum over neighboring atoms with atomic number Z1, but it's a sum over product of the cutoff function and this Gaussian centered at some distance Rs, some point Rs. And this is a cosine sum over cosine functions. And these are G4 and G5 are summation over uh, products of this angular function and some function of distance for pairs of Z1, Z2. And we had seen these, how these functions look like. And I had explained this to you. So the example I'll show you is, I have a system. Okay, so let me now go to the script. So again, I'm working with the abac3.db database, which I downloaded from CMR. And you know how to access, how to connect to this database. I had shown you earlier. And elements, I create a list called elements, which will store what are the elements present in the in my database. Okay, and this is a header row. Material, that will be the ID, and then ACSF, and you have to know how many components of ACSF you have for a given system. All right, and this is the physical property that I will store along with it. So I will explain how I get this number 1320 in this particular case. Then you have to set the G2, G3, G4, G5, etc. parameters. And just to keep things simple, I have just set one set of parameters in each case. So G2, recall, I'll go back to my slide, requires two parameters, eta and rs. You can have different sets of eta and rs. And to keep the calculation simple in this case, I kept only one set of eta and rs. This is just an example. I mean, for a real calculation, you would like to keep more pairs of eta and rs. And I kept one kappa value for G3 and one triplet for eta, zeta, and lambda for the G4 function. All right, and I'm not even using G5. And computationally, G5 used to be a little tricky, but I learned that they have fixed some bugs that, or some bug or something they had in calculation of G5. I haven't tried after that, but you may try and see if you succeed. When I tried last time, I encountered some problems. So I leave that out. So G2, G3, G4, G1 will, of course, automatically be calculated. So these are things we have seen. So we create the atoms object with atoms equal to row dot 2 atoms, and z numbers equal to atoms dot numbers will give you the atomic numbers, and which are appended to the list elements. So after this for loop is done, this thing species is a list which is a sorted list of elements. So it is the z numbers, that the atomic numbers that appear in all the materials in your database, arranged in increasing order. That's it. So let's see what are the, I have stored this, I run this, I stored this in a file. So let me see if I can show you that thing. Yeah. So species, this is the list. First line is the list of species. and number of different elements turns out to be 48. So this list has length 48, number of different elements is 48. So given this, how many components of ACSF do we expect? G1, G2, G3. If you look at the structure of G1, G2, G3, since I have only one set of parameters in each case, they will have, each one of them will have components equal to the number of different Z values that appear in my elements list. Okay, so 48 each. And then how many Z1, Z2 pairs do I have? If I have 48 different Z values, then excluding double counting, the number of sort of unique Z1, Z2 pairs that we will have is given by that 48 times 49 by 2, which is 1176. So the total number of components in the ACSF will be 1176 plus 3 times 48, which is 1320, and that's exactly how we got this number 1320 here. If you have more sets of parameters for each of these components, this number will accordingly increase. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So now I have to calculate the ACSF. So these are the Z numbers. Once again, name of the material is row name plus prototype I had shown you. So these two are added with a dash in between. So that will be the unique name that identifies a material in the database. And if the length is less than 30, then samples is atom, and from samples I extract the current, the atom's object. And this line I showed you earlier, this line defines how ACSF is to be calculated. So RC in the cutoff function, this is that R cut, which is set as 7 here, and species is equal to species. So what is that? Species means what are the elements that appear in your data set about which, so this species parameter that you have to define, that you have to pass on or define for this ACSF descriptor is what are the list of elements about which you want to calculate ACSF. So only those elements will be kept at the center while calculating ACSF. In this case, what I have done is I have set the ACSF parameter I'm passing equal to all the elements I found here. So this species list contains all the elements in my data set. So ACSF will be calculated centered around each element that appears in a particular material. I can decide to choose a restricted set out of this list. So in that case, I have to set this object species as that restricted list. Okay, so I can, for example, decide to calculate species equal to only the metal atom. So you want to calculate ACSF only about the transition metal atoms in your unit cell, for example, or metal atoms in general in your unit cell. It entirely depends on your problem, your understanding of the material's properties that you are interested in. So basically, this essentially comes from your domain knowledge. And then the parameters that we defined are passed on here, periodic true, because we are working with periodic systems. The next line describe how to calculate, so not how to, but to create ACSF. So for each material and for each atom in the unit cell, this 1320 quantities will be calculated. And the next line you see is, I'll show you, I have all printed this all out. And so here what happens is, different materials have different number of atoms in the unit cell. So look here. So here, for one, the first material, second, third, etc., all that you can see here, the shape of the ACSF feature vector is 10 by 1320, because these materials have 10 atoms in the unit cell. For each atom, 1320 quantities are being calculated. But then there are other materials which have 30 atoms in the unit cell. So these are 30 by 1320 arrays. So therefore, these shapes are different. So you cannot use these as such as your features. You either have to zero pad the ones with smaller number of atoms, or do something else. So what I did in this case is that I just calculated the average value of the ACSF. And so NP mean with axis equal to 0 means it's averaging over the first index. So if it has calculated ACSF for 10 different elements in the unit cell, it is averaging over the ACSF of these 10 elements. So finally, I have something which is of size 1320, and which are now appended here, the average ACSF, and finally in this part, these are written in CSV format. So let me see if I can show you. Sorry, mistake. Yeah, because there are too many. So ACSF 1 to ACSF 1320, and then each line will contain these quantities for a different element. Okay, it's hard to visualize or even see this such big files in a screen. There are too many rows and columns, but you get the idea. And then these are the kind of files which can be used for your model training. So I think that is all I wanted to discuss today. I will share parts of the scripts, and I will I'll share my slides as usual, and I will specify some tasks, and I will suggest that you try to do this, which will give you practice as to how to use AC, how to extract data from materials project, CMR, how to sort of use describe, create feature vectors, etc. Okay. The last thing in the sense, the last feature vector construction that we will see hopefully next time is the NBTR. So that's all for today. If you have questions, you can ask me. Yeah, Shivankar, are you there? Okay, so if there are no questions, I'll stop here today and we'll take it up next time.